you just go down and kind of look at just the D-line, and I still have the scholarship distribution chart as the previous staff. So, what's a D lineman? What's an edge? Is there nickels? Like, how will they kind of define roles? But I think let's start D line.
Yeah, start with the D line.
And let's call it 280 plus pound bodies. And
it's light on numbers too.
And
look at it. I mean, just look at the chart, Sean.
We're banking on Stephon Wynn Jr., Nash Hutmacher. Ty Robinson's out for the spring. The transfer Elijah Judy, a Philadelphia kid who is tough, but he hadn't played at A&M. Ed Foley really spoke highly of him at St. Michael's that night. Said he's a neighborhood kid. He's a tough Philly kid.
Elijah Judy.
So they're excited about him. But Ruquan Buckley, kind of an unknown. Cameron Lenhart is here right now, so that's a promising sign that you'll get some reps with him in spring ball. But that freshman group, I like Van Poppel. He's just, he's not here. Carroll Jackson, potential. Lafatu, potential. You don't know what those guys have. I mean, they really might have to go to the portal for one more, rent a player almost.
Absolutely,
like
Sean.
Stephon Wynn / Devin Drew last year.
Devin Drew gone, yeah. So now here's the deal. When I look at this chart, what I wonder about is, now they're talking about like a real football game for the spring game. Those numbers are awfully light for that, Sean. Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, there's just not a lot there to work with.
No, unless they have some. Are they thinking of moving somebody? I don't know. It's not like they're loaded down with offensive linemen to move either. So, I mean, look at how light that is. Hutmacher has a lot to prove. Ben Jr. was sufficient last year, I would say.
He was sufficient. I mean, he is what he is. Like they basically got a guy that could give them quality snaps, and he did. I mean, there were a couple moments where he made plays, but it wasn't like he changed games.
No. Robinson, again, he's not participating this spring. So it's, again, light. Ruquan Buckley flat told me last summer he wasn't ready. Now, hopefully he got himself ready, right? Buckley just said, I'm not ready to play yet. Now, that was a year ago. So hopefully over the course of a year, he's gotten himself ready to roll.
Yeah, and we both were on a high horse about the Colton Feast leaving was a big deal. And we
were on a high horse.
I believe in your co-partner, former defensive coordinator Bill Bush, same thing. I mean, like Colton Feast would have helped this team. And yeah, I just, you wish they could have worked it out.
I know.
I don't know what happened there. I really don't, because Colton could have helped this team this year, but maybe a new staff year one, they want to go in a new direction.
So yeah, Lenhart could be very valuable this spring, but it just, all you got to do if you're watching this is read that chart. They're light. That's one thing I've been saying since December is they need numbers up front. They didn't really get
280-pound plus bodies.
Yeah. And they didn't really get it. That's the one thing I'd say about their talent acquisition on both sides of the line. I don't think they did a great job on either side of bolstering it,
because it's hard.
Well, it is hard.
I mean, it's really difficult to find quality linemen in the portal.
Yeah, because there's just not that many 6'4", 310-pound guys walking around.
Everybody wants those guys.
Yeah. I mean, you go to Super Saver, how many guys do you see that are 6'4", 300 that can move? Zero.
You might see guys that are 280, but they can't move very well.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's move down the line here on the defense here as we move through. You got linebackers and kind of edge, and we know the inside linebackers. Nick Henrich is out for the spring.
Yes, he is.
But we know what he is. We know what Luke Reimer is. But what we do know is those guys have been injury prone, Steve Sipple.
Yeah.
And what we don't know is MJ Sherman. Like, what is his true role? Now, he told me they're going to move him around. Mm-hmm. So he could
help.
I think in this 3-3-5 Tony White world, he's just a movable matchup part where they're going to move him to the edge, the linebacker, all over. And that's what we don't really know. When I talk about defining positions right now, where do those guys factor in?
Right. We don't know. There's the inside linebacker picture is really interesting. Yeah, it's Reimer and Henrich. As you stated, Sean, they're both injury prone. Reimer, I think, is the best player on defense, though. When he's healthy, I don't think they have a better defender than Luke Reimer because of what he gives you sideline to sideline, right? Sideline to sideline player.
Oh yeah, it just
he's all over.
His body just kind of struggled.
Well, now what I would tell you about that is they're both a little undersized for the Big Ten, so that's why it's hard to stay healthy. Nick's not the world's best athlete either. So there's a lot of strain he's putting on his body all the time, right? Because he's not as naturally gifted as some guys physically, he has to strain. And that can take a toll, especially when you're a little undersized. Now, the guys that you really watch here, Garrett Snodgrass is a junior. Then you have those sophomores that it's time now. But it's time. Randolph Kapai, Micaiah Gaber, and Seth Malcolm. Time. Gotta go. You gotta start. They gotta start working themselves into a position where they can go in a game and be not just stopgap players, but they can make plays. You got to have guys that can make plays.
Yeah, and if they don't put themselves in the conversation this spring, you just wonder what is their long-term outlook in this program. It's a fair question. Yeah. As you look forward to this team, but I'm intrigued. You'll have the freshman Maverick Noonan. We're talking about edge guys now.
Yeah.
Noonan will be here. Princewell, Emmanuelin will be here.
Okay.
So those are two guys that will be here this spring that will get a clear picture. Jake Applegate. I love Jake Applegate coming out of high school.
As a guy you watch now, you start watching that.
Will he factor in this year? And there's another Applegate, by the way, at Southeast as a freshman. So like that family just keeps growing football players. And I believe he's the youngest of the crew. Blaze Gunnerson, Jamari Butler, Chief Borders, Kai Whalen. You got 4 edge guys there. Are some of those guys defensive lineman type guys that can play at least defensive end?
Well, I will tell you this, Jamari Butler's not big enough to go into the interior. Now, see, if they're playing now, it gets to be a little bit involved. If they're truly in a 3-3-5, you obviously don't need as many defensive linemen, big defensive linemen. So maybe that's what kind of they're banking on. I don't know. I'll tell you what, Butler and Gunnerson are gigantic. They were sufficient last year. They got to be better than sufficient. Chief Borders, unknown. Kai Whalen, unknown. Sherman, largely unknown. A lot of unknown, but I would say a lot of potential. When I look at it, I'm not really, I don't have major concerns, except I would say this. Those guys they lost. I mean, they lost a second team all Big Ten player in
Nelson.
Yeah, in Nelson. Garrett.
Tanner.
And they lost a second team all Big 12 player in O'Shawn Mathis. O'Shawn Mathis.
Oh, you're talking about O'Shawn Mathis,
yeah,
Big 12.
Second team all Big 12, in his previous life. And then they lost Caleb Tanner, who played
5 years.
Yeah, played 5 years and played 56
games.
And
Ernest Hausman.
Yeah, and lost Ernest Hausman as an inside
pretty dang
guy.
Good football player.
They those 4 guys those are pretty significant losses. O'Shawn Mathis, say what you want about him. He got invited to the combine. Garrett Nelson should have gotten invited to the combine. You were talking about him like he could make an NFL roster. And Caleb, now listen, Sean, I'm going to tell you something about Caleb Tanner. Don't be surprised if he's on an NFL roster next year. Played out of position at Nebraska. Played with his hand down at 220. Sean, play with his hand down at 220. He's not going to play with his hand down in the NFL. They're going to they'll make him an inside linebacker, maybe a Sam. And I bet he makes a roster. I know that's going out on a limb, but I'm just illustrating what they lost, which is quite a bit. They lost quite a bit there.
Now, MJ Sherman could really answer a lot of questions and help shore up some things. He could be a difference maker.
Oh, yeah.
They need him to be a difference maker.
Yeah.
They need.
And the question was with MJ Sherman, has he regained, he suffered a knee injury in high school. And the question at Georgia was, could he ever regain all his explosiveness? Now that's what you watch. What's the explosion look like? All
right. Lastly, secondary, and I think we both agree that this might be the deepest position.
No, we do agree.
Isaac Gifford, starting level player. Javin Wright has played snaps. You go down nickel, the line. Yeah. Tommy Hill has been a starter. He's back at defensive back.
A lot of guys here. They're good.
Quentin Newsome, longtime starter. Tyreek Johnson, not a factor. Braxton Clark. has played some, Omar Brown, but then you got Miles Farmer and Marquise Buford. I mean, you've got a lot of material, and then obviously the young freshman from a year ago at corner, Malcolm Hartstock.
Yeah, and you heard Evan Cooper tell us on this show that he's coaching Quentin Newsome like he's an NFL player right now. Okay, Quentin Newsome's going to play in the NFL, so you got an NFL corner. You heard Evan Cooper effusive in his praise of Malcolm Hartsock. He said those are the tough kid, fast, ball hawk. He said those are the kind of, he said of Hartsock, those are the kind of kids you need to win. Their corners are good. Tommy Hill back at corner. So that Tommy Hill gets beat out by Malcolm Hartsock last year.
Could he play safety though?
I suppose, yeah.
I mean, I think that's what we like.
Yeah,
we asked Evan Cooper this on the Husker Headline show a couple weeks ago, and he's like, he's a defensive back.
See, I don't know if you're Tommy Hill, I don't know where you want to make a run at it. Could you make a run at it corner, getting your old job back? Or do you dip into that safety pool, which is pretty deep? It's a deeper pool at safety, Sean. I mean, look at who they got back at safety. Farmer Buford leads the way.
And there's some wild cards there, like Kanoa Paul Gates, like with a fresh start, be a factor.
Deshaun Singleton.
What about Kane Williams?
Yeah, Williams.
Corey Collier. I mean, yeah, there's some tough decisions on that back.
I think there will be. I like Farmer. I mean, I really like the way Farmer started tackling in the box. He went from sort of a suspect tackler to a really good tackler in the box, sure tackler.
So we're going to be talking lots of secondary here over the course of spring because there's definitely some intrigue.
There's a lot there.